Welcome to Missouri Sports Talk. I'm your host, Cameron Staley, and today we've got large school predictions. That is Class 4, Class 5, and Class 6. Now I'm a little late. I'm hoping this is up by 3:30, hoping it's not any later than that. If it is, hopefully it's not past 4 o'clock. So I'm sorry, I had a hectic week. I've had some stuff going on. But let's go ahead and get to the predictions. The first Class 4 scoreboard is on your screen. Perryville hosting Hillsboro. They're 9-1 this season, but I don't think that they're better than Hillsboro, if we're going to be honest. So I will take the Hawks in this game. Bulldogs versus Falcons, Kearney and Van Horn. Kearney, man, they're looking unstoppable right now. I feel like the only team in Class 4 that can beat them is Luther North. So I will take Kearney in this game. Hannibal versus Mexico. Very interesting. Mexico upset Kirksville. I didn't mean to say upsetted. Hannibal, they're looking solid. I feel like Hannibal probably would have beaten Kirksville if we're going to be honest. I did take Kirksville to win the game and then lose to Warrenton in the district championship. But, Kirksville doesn't even get to this one. I do think that Hannibal is the better team, even with Mexico winning the game last Friday. So give me the Pirates in this game. Orchard Farm versus Westminster. This game happened in Class 3 last year. Now they're both in Class 4. This was the district championship game. The winner went on to play Blair Oaks. It was a big field to it, and Westminster got the upset. They left a poor taste in Orchard Farm's mouth last year. I think that Orchard Farm gets Part 2 done. I believe that the Eagles will move on to the district championship. This isn't for the district championship. It's the district semifinals. The winner, they will play most likely Parkway North. Warrensburg versus Nevada. This is going to be a good game. So I looked a little bit into this one because somebody in TikTok is telling me that this one's not going to go Warrensburg's way. I told them I disagreed. And then I went to look at the matchup stats. Since 2010, Nevada is actually 1-6 versus Warrensburg. We're going to make that 1-7. I believe that Warrensburg's offense is absolutely stellar this year. And it's a home game, so I think the Tigers will take this one. Warrenton versus Osage. This is going to be a good game. I think this is going to be one of the better games in Class 4 this week. If I hadn't gone to film Warrenton in the Jamboree, I probably would have been there. But, Warrenton is ineligible since I've already filmed them. But nonetheless, this is a fun game against Osage. Osage has been a lot better than I expected them to be this year. I thought they were going to be good, but I didn't think they were going to be 8-2 good. So they're rolling right now, but I do think that Warrenton has the edge in this one. Class 4 scoreboard number 2. We'll start with West Plains and Logan Rogersville. Logan Rogersville sitting at 4-6. This one's just not going to be that entertaining, so give me the Zizzers. Sullivan versus Pacific, 6-4 versus 5-5. Another one that may not be super entertaining. I will take Sullivan winning this game. I think that they win the district championship, but we will see. Pleasant Hill versus Harrisonville. I think Pleasant Hill gets this one done. They're rolling right now. I think they'll move up to 8-2. Carl Junction versus Bolivar. This one should be fun. Both of them sitting at 6-4. Carl Junction was pretty bad last year, and now they're 6-4. They turned it around. They've got a legitimate shot at the district championship, and I think it starts with tonight where they beat Bolivar at home. It should be a fun game. Festus versus North County. North County sitting at 7-3, but I'm not super high on this year. I think Festus gets this one done. I think that they make it to the Final Four. I have them losing to Warrenton, though. The Class 4 game of the week has to be Smithville versus Savannah. This should be fun. Savannah's they're going to Smithville. They're 7-3. Smithville sitting at 8-2. It should be very entertaining. Smithville and Savannah, the winner of this one goes to play Kearney. So, the outlook is not so good after this Friday for these two teams. But I do think that Smithville is able to get this one done. Class 5 scoreboard. We will start with Cape Central versus Poplar Bluff. Poplar Bluff won last week. I didn't expect them to. I did take Farmington. Poplar Bluff, they ended up winning quite good. But I really like how Cape Central's looking this year. I believe the Tigers will beat the Mules. Carthage versus Neosho. I think Carthage gets this one done quite easily. They're sitting at 8-1. They are looking good in Class 5 this year. I'm not certain if they make it past the state quarterfinals. We'll see, though. Platte County versus Central. Central, they're kind of mid, if we're going to be honest. 5-5, I guess, is the definition of mid. Platte County, 9-0. They are rolling. I think they're a really good team, so give me the Pirates winning this one. Helias versus Camdenton. Helias, they're dealing with some injuries right now, so they're playing a Camdenton team that's strung together a few wins. They beat Rolla last week. That's a good win. It's a solid win. Rolla wasn't amazing this year, but they won 49-20. So that's a really solid win for Camdenton. If Camdenton can take care of the weaknesses with all the players out, specifically the offensive line for Helias, if the Lakers can get pressure this whole entire game, they've got a chance. But I do think Helias overall will end up getting this one done. Eureka versus Washington will be very fun. Washington is on a hot streak right now. They're sitting at 7-3. I want to say they're 3-3 or 4-3 at one point in the season. So they're getting it together, but now they have to run into Eureka. And that's not a good thing for any team. Eureka's sitting at 9-0, so nobody else has been able to get it done. I don't think it's Washington that does it. So give me Eureka. Lafayette versus Rockwood Summit. This has to be the Class 5 game of the week, I think. Lafayette and Rockwood, I almost went to this game. It was in consideration. It was kind of lower in the top 5, though, if we're going to be honest. But overall, this is going to be a fun game. You got some great players with Lafayette, with Jack and Robbie. So I think that the Lancers end up getting this one done over Rockwood Summit. Rockwood Summit, they're a good team, though. So this is kind of a toss-up game. Class 5 scoreboard number 2. We'll start with Cardinal Ritter and St. Mary's. St. Mary's sitting at 4-6. They were good for a while, but they've kind of dropped off just a little bit. So give me Cardinal Ritter in this one. MICDS versus Chaminade. Chaminade, not the greatest team, if we're going to be honest. So I will take MICDS. They're sitting at 8-2. I believe they move on to 9-2. Fort Zumwalt North versus Fort Zumwalt West. North is sitting at 9-0. They're really good at running the ball, and West sitting at 5-5. I do believe that the Panthers will be able to win this game. Capital City versus Lebanon. Almost went to this game. This is actually number 3 on the list for me, if we're going to be honest. Lebanon sitting at 6-4. They're coming to 7-3. Capital City. The Cavaliers, they've been off and on this year. They're losing to teams that people expect them to lose to, and they're winning against teams that people expect them to win against. So, it's been kind of honestly an expected season for Capital City, if we're going to be honest. I did kind of evaluate them in the 6-3 to 7-2 range. Now they're sitting at 7-3 after a playoff win last week. So I think that Capital City wins this game over Lebanon. But, Lebanon started off the season really cold, and now they're kind of getting together a little bit. It's going to be an interesting game. Liberty hosting North Point. This one, it's going to be fireworks. North Point, they started off the season 4-0, and then all of a sudden they're 4-4. So the season kind of slipped away from them. Now they're back on track with 2 wins. Sitting at 6-4, but Liberty, my goodness, I got to see them, and I believe it was week 8. They're at Fort Zumwalt South, and it was a great game for Liberty. I think they dropped 56. And Jalen Mack with a school record in rushing touchdowns. He absolutely balled out in that game. I think he probably won't repeat a school record in this one, but I think he balls out once again. Give me the Eagles winning this one. St. Pius X versus Fort Osage is where we'll wrap up Class 5. I think the Warriors are going to be able to beat Fort Osage. Fort Osage, it feels like they're having a down year, yet they're still at 7-3. So they're putting the wins together, but it hasn't been beautiful. St. Pius X, though, moving up from Class 3 all the way up to 5, they're still at 9-1. Their one loss, Class 6 Rockhurst, who was evaluated at number 1 by multiple media outlets at the start of the season. So, this Warrior team is really good. I think they continue to roll. Class 6 scoreboard. We'll start with Seckman and Oakville. Seckman, they haven't had the strongest schedule in the world, so they're sitting at 9-0, but I feel like Oakville is not going to be the one to test them, so give me the Jaguars winning this one. Troy Buchanan versus Hal Central. Central sitting at 4-6. They just beat Hickman by 7 this past week. Troy is sitting at 9-0. I feel like, I think the only team that's stopping them anytime soon is Rockbridge, and that is next week. But I think that Troy gets this one done quite easily. CBC versus Marquette. Marquette's having a down year. They're sitting at 5-5. I think CBC gets this one done quite easily. If I were to put a point total on it, I think this ends up being a 20-plus point win for the Cadets. Liberty North, they are being hosted by Liberty. Both these teams, they're playing okay this year. Both of them sitting at 6-3. Liberty North, they just won the championship last year, and they've slumped a little bit. They lost a lot of seniors, so that's their big problem. Liberty, they've got a really good senior class this year. So, I think both these teams have advantages in different spots on this team. I do think that Liberty North will be able to get this one done, though. Kirkwood versus Francis Howell. Francis Howell is 4-5 this year. This is not what they are wanting, and if they end at 4-6, that's pretty bad. That's not good. But they've had a really hard schedule, and they're not reaping any sort of rewards. Kirkwood sitting at 6-2. Obviously, not 7-2 because they had the bye week because they play Webster Groves on Thanksgiving. So, Kirkwood sitting at 6-2. I feel like, having both these teams had the bye week, so they're both rested. I feel like Kirkwood's just the better team. So give me the Pioneers. Jackson versus Lindbergh. This is another one in the top 5. I thought about it, I should probably go experience a Friday night at the pit next year because I didn't get around to it this year. So, Lindbergh coming to town, probably the hardest place to play in Missouri. So I've got to take the Jackson Indians winning this game. Class 6 scoreboard number 2. We will start with Nixa and Ozark. This game happened like 2 weeks ago, and it was not pretty. So I will take Nixa winning big. Rockbridge versus St. Dominic. St. Dominic's having a down year. They're sitting at 4-5. Definitely not what they were expecting or wanting. Rockbridge at 8-1. They're having a really good year. I think they continue to roll. SLU, they're being hosted by Rittner. Rittner, they're sitting at 4-5, but I feel like, SLU, they've played some pretty tough competition. I don't think that the Tigers really match up with the Junior Billikens. So I think that SLU ends up winning this game. Oak Park versus North Kansas City. Both teams, they're okay, but it's not. I don't see a deep playoff run for either of these teams. I think whichever one wins, they probably end up losing next week. I will take Oak Park though. Lee Summit versus Rockhurst. Oh my, this is going to be a good one. Lee Summit, they lost their head coach. He goes to JC. And they bring in a new coach, and they're playing really good this year. They're sitting at 7-2. Rockhurst, not exactly what people were expecting. A lot of media outlets, they had them at number 1 this season. It's not necessarily happening. They're at 6-3. They have lost to some pretty tough competition, though. I do think that they are able to beat Lee Summit in this game, though. The Class 6 game of the week, Blue Springs South versus Blue Springs. I definitely was considering going to this game for a few days. I was kind of locked in on it, and I call in to see if I need any sort of credentials. They say I need MSHA credentials. I apply for MSHA credentials. Unfortunately, it gets declined. So, I've got the state championship games are kind of at stake right now. I'm not 100% certain if I'm going to be able to go film these games because I don't have credentials. They said it was because I don't have a business and because I don't have a website. So, if you are wanting good news out of this, I'm going to make this a business. So Missouri Sports Talk will now be a licensed business next week as we roll into 2025. And also, I'm looking for someone to make me a website. So if you guys know how to make websites, maybe hit me up with that. But for the sake of the game, predicting it, I do think that Blue Springs South is able to get it done for a second time against the rivals this year. So, kind of blew past it all. That was my 36 games in the large schools this week. That's all I had. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this and get on to Mount Vernon tonight. Mount Vernon versus Mountain Grove is the game of the week. So I'll see you guys next time. This has been Missouri Sports Talk.